kind of behavior, and it's what makes bumblebees and carpenter bees and a handful of leafcutters even cooler than the rest of the bees to me, because honeybees can't do this particular behavior. What they'll do is they'll land on these flowers and have those sort of porocidal anthers. You can see this Hemochrista. Well, you can't see it because it's too bright in here, but there's little dots on the end there. It also has a porocidal anther. This is French's shooting star, which is a rare and susceptible plant in Arkansas. It too has porocidal anthers that require buzz pollinators. And what she'll do is she'll land on the flower and then take her thorax muscles, which is the big round part right here, and will vibrate them and make this vibration come out. You can actually hear this little sound. And that makes all of that pollen that's located deep inside that tube come shooting out in a big cannon. It's a big pollen cannon. It covers the bee. It's awesome. And then the bee will groom a good bit of that off and take it back to her nest. But if you notice exactly where that's placed on the bumblebee here, it's going to be landing right there. When she comes up on the next flower, then she's going to contact that female part with her abdomen first. So it's a very direct and efficient way to make sure that the right pollen gets delivered to the right plant. And it's also a great pollen source for bumblebees because no other bees can really get at it. Now, this little picture down here is a tomato flower, this tiny little bee on it. And I don't know if you see those brown marks there. That's where this bee has been trying to chew through these big pollen tubes to try and squeeze some of the pollen out because she can't get at it. She wants the pollen, but it's too hard to get at because she can't buzz pollinate. So this is a really specialized, useful way for plants to be pollinated correctly and a really great pollen source for bees. In August, we had iron bees. This was another one that when I found the Faunus pennsylvanicus up at Woolsey, that it was hanging out on iron bees. And then we also had goldenrod start up September through October, that last little part of the fall. This gorgeous little brush of yellow everywhere. And this is pretty much how it panned out. So looking at the plants here in Fayetteville that I did find bumblebees on. And when they were blooming and when I found bumblebees on them. So sometimes the bloom period will be longer, but the bees are only liking them in a certain period of time based on other plants that might be around and whatnot. But early in this part here, that's what I was saying earlier, this is where we need to think about when we're yanking out all of the vetch and the brambles and the honeysuckle, what else is there? And so far, looking through the literature, the only one that I've really seen listed as being an early bloomer here in northwest Arkansas that's native is one of the columbines, a little red flower, and that is something that bumblebees really like as well. So there might actually be trees. I think redbud might bloom that early. So there might be other things that we need to think about. We're in the prairie kind of orb area there. That's kind of a missing element at the moment, but this eventually will make its way onto the sheet that I have back here for plants that I recommend here in Arkansas, minus the honeysuckle. I won't tell people to put in vetch and honeysuckle. There's plenty of that out there already. And this is pretty much something that I wanted to bring up because a lot of people are confused about the idea of whether or not insects are wildlife. And so I've blocked out the names and the state because I didn't want to actually be rude, but I thought that it was a really good example of what's going on. I'm looking at doing another study, looking at carpenter bees throughout the southeastern U.S. So I've been asking about permits and whether or not I needed a scientific collecting permit to collect insects in different states. And I got this response here from somebody who didn't know that this was getting forwarded, I think, saying that if I was getting a PhD, then I should know that the Chief of Wildlife, in all caps, does not deal with insects because insects aren't wildlife. And this varies state to state. It's really amazing. And you know, I eventually got to the, this is just something that I pointed out because I thought that it was, because it's in all caps, it was so absolutely driving the point home. But this is how it turned out looking at my permit search here. Most states in our area don't think of insects as wildlife. It really wasn't that ridiculous for that person to get so bent out of shape that I would ask the wildlife department if I needed a permit because to them, insects aren't wildlife. So insects aren't wildlife in Arkansas, Missouri, Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, Florida, or South Carolina. They are in Oklahoma, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Virginia. And so far, North Carolina and Georgia won't answer any of my emails. This is something that, you know, again, just bringing home the point that a lot of people don't think about insects when they think about conservation. They don't think about them when they think about wildlife. But they're part of this whole world. They're a large part of this whole world. So I have a lot of sheets back here that have some information. There's a list of links to all of these sort of citizen science projects, but I really encourage you to sign up to one of these just for the fun of it. They don't really take a lot of time. A lot of time they're going in your yard and photographing something and then going on a little form on the internet and putting it in. It takes like 15 minutes. But it actually gets you involved in noticing what's there and what sort of things the insects are fond of in your yard and what sort of behaviors they have. Are they eating your plants, or are they eating the things that are eating your plants? And so other suggestions are plants that the bees might be interested in. I've got that list back here. You know, washing out pesticides, and you know, maybe aphids on your roses aren't so bad. And just trying to provide nest and nesting sites for bees as well. I've got some sheets on how to build homes for bees. And I just wanted to say thanks. Thanks for being a captive audience, listening about the little six-legged things that run the world. And thank you guys for having me at the FNHA. And yes.
Are the deer having any impact on these areas?
The deer. I don't know. I do see deer. I've seen them up at World Peace, and I've seen them at Woolsey. I don't think I've seen any at Lake Fayetteville when they've been out there. I'm sure they're out there.
Lake Fayetteville has bigger, 6 or 8. But in jail way back when,